Today we are going to discuss about the polynomial regression and one more algorithm or the analytical way to find out the solution for linear regression, and that is normal equation method. So in fact, in the last discussions we have gone through linear regression and the algorithm gradient descent that can be used to come up with the optical parameters for linear regression, right? We have seen simple regression, we have seen multiple regression as well. So today we are going to come up with a very interesting concept, and that is polynomial regression, and then we'll see the alternative way for gradient descent to come up with the parameters theta, right? So let's begin our discussion with one simple example. Sometimes whatever may be the data given, sometimes what happens is we need to create our own features. So what I mean by that, creating our own features, let us see the example once again of housing price prediction. But now let us assume that instead of having the features those we considered earlier, now we are having the features like the frontage of the land and the depth of the land. So frontage is the front area of our land where we are having the house built up, and the depth is the how deep your land is. So let us assume that these are our two features, and based on these two features we are supposed to come up with the price for the land or price for the house, right? So whatever we have learned so far, what we may say is we may come up with a hypothesis wherein we may treat these two, frontage and depth, as the two features, and we may come up with the multiple regression of such kind. So we may have the hypothesis like h theta x equal to theta 0 plus theta 1 x1 plus theta 2 x2, wherein this x1, that is the first feature, would be the frontage, and this x2, that is the second feature, would be the depth, right? So this is perfectly fine if we come up with such kind of a hypothesis. So this hypothesis is for multiple regression because we are having two features here, right? But we may think of, instead of having these two features and coming up with the multiple regression like this, can we create our own feature? Because if we look at the problem statement and if we find out the semantics or the insight about the problem, we may say that it is better that instead of considering frontage and depth as two different features, why not to come up with a new feature, that is area. And how area can be computed? Area can be computed based on these two features, frontage multiplied with depth, right? So instead of having these two features separately, we may think of like this. Based on these two features, we may design, we may create our own feature, and that is area. So we may use this feature now, area, to come up with our hypothesis. So if I'll be considering this only one feature, then it is possible for me to come up with this kind of a simple regression, for which the hypothesis being h theta x equal to theta 0 plus theta 1 x, wherein this x is now my area, land area. Is that correct? So in fact, if we get this new feature area, it is possible that we might get a better model to fit our data. Right? So this is just one example, just to demonstrate that depending on the insight about the problem, it is possible for us to decide about the features, which features to consider, or if possible, can we create some new features based on whatever are the existing features, so that we may come up with some effective model, right? So I think the idea is clear now. Yes, so sometimes we may think in this direction. So whatever may be the problem statement, depending on the insight, the semantics of the problem, it may happen that we may think of creating new features from the existing ones, right? And we may come up with some better hypothesis to solve our problem. Okay, so just right now keep in mind that it is possible to create our own features. Okay, now this similar kind of concept we are going to apply for polynomial regression. So let us once again see the example. So we are having one feature, that is size, and we are predicting price. Okay, and these are the samples in our training data set. Just look at the samples in our training data set. So if I come up with, so right now what I know is the linear regression. Okay, so if I come up with a hypothesis, may be like this, right, which is a line. Okay, because I am having a single feature and this is my two-dimensional space wherein I am having the training data set. So I may come up with this line, or maybe I may come up with the line something like this, right? But even though I get a linear hypothesis like this, I don't think that this hypothesis is better suited to fit my data. Because if I look at my data, the data that is spread in this space is something different. The pattern is something different. So I need to think of some other kind of hypothesis. So let me try now the hypothesis that is quadratic one. So if I consider such kind of a hypothesis, h theta x equal to theta 0 plus theta 1 x plus theta 2 x square. So this is a quadratic function. This is a quadratic model. So if I try to fit this kind of a model with this data, what I get is something like this, right? So earlier we tried to fit a line, but now if we compare the line fitting with this quadratic model, which is better? Yes, which is a better fit, whether a line or a quadratic model like this?
Quadratic model.
Quadratic model. Because what is happening over here is right. But now once again, if I think of this quadratic model, this quadratic function may decline now. After some point, it may decline like this. So it may go down because it is a quadratic model, right? So if now I am having such kind of a quadratic model, then after some point, right, my function may decline like this. And if my function is going to decline, then for the current scenario, what is the scenario? What is the problem statement? We are been provided with size of the house and we are supposed to predict the price. But it may not happen that if size of my house goes on increasing, it is rarely possible that price price goes on decreasing, right? It will rarely happen, or even I think that it may not happen, that if the land size or the size of my house goes on increasing, then the price declines. It will not happen. So even though for the data I may think that quadratic model is suitable, if I look at the nature of the quadratic model, after some time it may go on declining, right? And if this is the way how my quadratic model gets represented, this may not be suitable for my current problem statement, because it may happen that I may have some data samples, right, with the size greater than this particular point, right? And suppose I am having here the data sample, if I am having here the data sample, and if I select this quadratic model, then probably it may happen that even though size of the house is more, I am predicting the less price, and that is why I need not select such kind of a quadratic model as well. So no worries, we are having several such different models, those we may come up with. So as we have stated that this quadratic model is not even good for us for this particular problem, can we think of a model like this with the hypothesis h theta x equal to theta 0 plus theta 1 x plus theta 2 x square plus theta 3 x cube? Right? So this is our cubic model. This is a cubic model because we are having one term which is a cube of my feature. No doubt we are having a single feature, but with that single feature we are adding few more terms in our hypothesis. One is the square term, another is the cubic term. So this model, this hypothesis is the cubic model, a cubic function. And if I try to fit this model with this data, I will get something like this. This is a cubic model. Okay. So if I try to fit this equation with respect to my data, I may get a plot something like this. And now if I look at this plot, this is not declining any further like the quadratic model, but it goes on increasing with respect to my size of the house, right? So I may think that this would be the appropriate model, the cubic model, and I may go with this. So depending on whatever kind of data we are having, whatever are the insights, those we know about the problem, depending on that, we may pick not necessarily a linear model, but we may come up with something very non-linear, something that is very complex, right? And it is possible to fit this kind of a data. We may think of having such kind of a cubic model. Now, we are going to relate now this cubic model with whatever knowledge that we have. So we have gone through the multiple linear regression, wherein we defined our hypothesis h theta x equal to theta 0 plus theta 1 x1 plus theta 2 x2 plus theta 3 x3 and so on. Right now let us assume that this is the hypothesis, that is my multiple regression hypothesis, because here we have considered three features x1, x2 and x3. Now I just would like to relate my cubic model with this hypothesis of multiple regression. So how I can relate this cubic model? Just see here, what is my feature? My feature in my problem statement right now is x, right? And I want to fit such kind of a cubic model. So what I can think of is, if I know such kind of a hypothesis for multiple regression, just I will think that my x1 here is the size, that is my feature, right? This x2, that is another feature in my multiple regression, might be size square. and this third feature x3 can be replaced as size cube, isn't it? So even though I am having a single feature, right? Even though I am having a single feature, what I have done is I have created out of that single feature, I have created 3 features. And what are those 3 features? x1 is size, x2 is size square, and x3 is size cube. So based on whatever feature I had, I have come up with 2 more features, size square and size cube. Right? So I'll say that this size is x1, this size square is x2, and this size 3 is x3. So whatever is my data or whatever is my training data available for all those data samples. In fact, I am having only one feature size, but what I'll do, I'll compute for every data. I know some value, say 1000 is the size of house in square feet. Right? Then what I can do is I can compute x square, I can compute x cube. So based on a single feature that I am having, that is 1000, I may compute x square. So x square would become 10 to the power 6, correct? No? And x cube will become 10 to the power 9. So similarly, whatever are my x values for all those different data points, I may create a new data set having 3 features, x, x square and x cube. So these are nothing but my x1, x2 and x3. Are you getting me? Yes?
Yes, ma'am.
Fine. So this is how we may think of this cubic model that we are having. Okay. Now, just one point to be noted here is, as we are having now the original feature, the square of that feature and the cube of that feature as separate features. We need to make use of feature scaling here if we are going for gradient descent. And why feature scaling is required? Just I mentioned, if my size of the house is 1000 square feet, then obviously size square becomes 10 to the power 6 and size cube becomes 10 to the power 9. So lots of difference in the range of values of these features. Do you agree with me?
Yes, ma'am. But here the values will increase rapidly, na?
Yes,
Then
obviously,
how
obviously. That is
how it
what
will
we
be
are
that
trying
much
to say.
correct?
That is what I am saying. See, if I consider such kinds of features, obviously, as I am having square value, cubic value, the values, the range of values is very much different, right? And that is why what we need to do is, in this scenario, feature scaling becomes very much important so that we can normalize all those feature values in some particular range, -1 to +1. Just we have discussed this concept earlier. So we would like to make all feature values within the same range by applying some normalization rule. So whatever may be the range of the feature, I may convert that range into the typical normalized range, wherein all my features will lie in the same range, right? So
Yes,
if
ma'am.
I got it, we have discussed this earlier, how to
Yes, ma'am. Yes,
normalize
ma'am.
our feature range. Yes.
Yeah.
So if we come up with, or if we apply that concept, it would be very much possible for us to come up with such kind of a function, right? And that might be a better fit for our data. Are you getting me?
Yes, ma'am.
Fine. Now, this is not only the choice. Let me tell you, this is not the only choice, cubic model. We may exercise another choices also. Somebody may come up with the hypothesis like h theta x equal to theta 0 plus theta 1 size plus theta 2 into square root of size. If I look at such kind of a hypothesis, I may get the hypothesis, this line plotted over here, right? This curve rather, this is not a line, but this kind of a function plotted over here. This might be the another choice. If I go with such kind of a hypothesis, h theta x equal to theta 0 plus theta 1 size plus theta 2 square root of size. Okay, so depending on, once again, depending on the problem, the insights those we are having about the problem, the training data set that has been provided, we may come up with such kind of a hypothesis. Now, one important question that may arise in your mind is like how to select the features. Correct? If I have provided with some features, how to select the features. So, in one of the units, we are going to discuss, there are several algorithms, those will help us to select the features, which features are more suitable to consider, right? So we are going to focus upon these algorithms later. But right now, just think of this concept as it is possible to create our own features, and it is also possible that given the set of features, we may pick the appropriate features to come up with the hypothesis, right? So a simple modification in our algorithm. So simply what we have done is we had here one feature, only one feature, but based on that one feature, we have created several other features, x square, x cube, and so on. And we are making use of now these features, right, to come up with our hypothesis that might be a better fit, right? So this is a non-linear function, no doubt, right? So not necessarily the linear function fits our data, but if our data is non-linear in nature, then we may think of such kinds of non-linear polynomial hypothesis also, right? And we may come up with this hypothesis based on some newly created features based on the existing ones. Okay, so this is the concept of polynomial regression. I hope you might have understood the concept now. Okay, may I proceed?
Yes, ma'am. Yes,
Let us go to a new algorithm, or rather we may say a new method, the alternative method for gradient descent. So in the last week, we had a discussion about gradient descent. And what was our gradient descent? Gradient descent was the optimization algorithm. So just I want to recall back what we did. So let us assume that we are having only one parameter, that is theta, and we are plotting our cost function j of theta against theta, right? And let us assume that we are having this plot with such kind of a nature, a bowl shape, okay, a convex function. So our gradient descent algorithm helps us to come up with the optimal value of theta. So to minimize this j of theta, we used gradient descent, and we have gone through the entire treatment of gradient descent, right? The algorithm, how to update the parameters. And we talked about the simple regression also, and we talked about multiple regression also, and how to use gradient descent for both problem solving, simple regression as well as multiple regression, and how to update the theta values to come up with the optimal values of theta. So we have seen this gradient descent algorithm for regression earlier. Now there is one alternative way of gradient descent. So in fact, if you remember, in gradient descent, we need to iterate through. So in every iteration, we are updating the values of the parameters, thetas. In every iteration, we are having some learning rate, if you remember. And in every iteration, we try to update our parameter values thetas. Okay, and after number of iterations, our algorithm may converge and we may come up with the optimal values of thetas. That is how our gradient descent works. But now we are having this alternative method, normal equation method, to solve for this theta analytically. So many times in certain situations, we are going to compare these two algorithms as well. But in certain situations, rather than going for gradient descent, sometimes it may be helpful for us to go with this analytical approach for solving our regression for the values of theta. And this method is known as normal equation method. So I'm going to demonstrate now this method. Let us assume now that we are having 4 features. So number of features n equal to 4. That is describing one instance, one observation. Once again, let us assume that we are having this data set of housing price. How many features we are having? 4 features. So I am having x1, that is size, x2, that is number of bedrooms, x3, that is number of floors, and x4, that is age of home. So we are having these 4 features in our data set, and based on these 4 features, we are supposed to predict the price of the house. So this is our output y, and in my feature vector, I am having these 4 features. Now, if you remember the general form of our hypothesis for regression, how we defined our hypothesis? We defined our hypothesis as h theta x is equal to theta transpose x. Do you remember this expression for hypothesis? Yes? This is the generalized expression of our hypothesis for regression. Do you remember this discussion? Yes?
Yes, ma'am.
Fine. So, in the earlier discussion, what we have mentioned is we may come up with a generalized hypothesis h theta x equal to theta transpose x. And to come up with this theta transpose x, we mentioned that with this parameter theta 0, we need to add one feature x0, additional one feature x0, right? For which always this x0 would have the value 1. Do you remember this? And by making this kind of a modification in our older hypothesis, we come up with this theta transpose x, wherein we have introduced this feature x0 for every sample, and we said that x0 should always be 1. Yes, do you remember this? Yes or no? We had this discussion earlier. Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Fine. So the same concept we are going to make use of here also. So what we are going to do next is we are going to add one more feature x0. So for every example, for every sample in our training data set, we are adding this feature x0, and this x0 would always be 1. Right?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, so what we have done is, now I am having these many features, 5 features total. Earlier actual features I had n equal to 4, and I have added this x0 extra feature with value 1. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to collect all those features and I'm going to form one matrix. So this capital X is my matrix, wherein what I have stored? I have stored all these feature vectors, right? So this feature vector is the first row in my matrix. So this feature vector corresponds to first sample. Second sample, so second row. Third sample features, third row. Fourth sample, fourth row in this matrix. So simply what I have done is, whatever are those feature values I am having for various examples in my training data set, I have come up with this matrix X, right? Also, with the help of this outputs, I have come up with this vector Y. I have listed all the outputs associated with all those samples, all those observations in my training data set. So now I am having this X matrix and I am having this Y matrix. Okay. So what is size dimension of this? Dimension of this X is m by n plus 1. What is m? Number of examples. So those many rows. Number of examples in my training data set. So I'll be having those many rows, m. And how many columns we have? N features, those were provided, and we have added one feature. So n plus 1 features. So n plus 1 columns. So obviously the size of our X matrix is the number of examples m by n plus 1. So whatever are the features plus 1. So this is size of my X matrix. What about size of this vector Y? Obviously this is m dimensional vector because I am having m examples here. Right? So the number of elements in Y are m. So I am having this m dimensional vector. So X is having the dimension m by n plus 1, whereas Y is my n dimensional vector. Right? Now, if I am formulating something like this with whatever is my training data available with me, then my normal equation method will directly give me this expression to compute the values of theta. Ultimately, what we are interested in computing this theta, parameter theta, right? To come up with the hypothesis. And to find out this parameters theta, earlier we made use of gradient descent. But now we are devising the method of normal equation, and this method directly gives me the values of parameters theta based on this computation of expression. So what this expression is, this is X transpose X inverse times X transpose Y. X transpose X inverse times X transpose Y. So if I try to compute this mathematical expression, right? Here I am having simply the matrix operations. Okay? So if I do not want to iterate through like gradient descent, right? Simply I can compute this matrix X, I can compute this matrix Y. I will put those matrices and the vectors in this expression, and just by operating upon, just by using simple mathematical or rather matrix operations, it is possible for me to come up with my theta values, my parameters for the hypothesis. And this method is the analytical method. In one go, it is possible for us to compute the theta values. So this method is known as normal equation method. We are not going into the details how to derive this formula. We are not going into the details of mathematics, how to derive this formula, because it is really very tedious, complex process, And in fact, in this discussion, it is not actually needed. What we are right now interested in, how to find out the values of theta, right? To come up with the hypothesis. And to come up with the hypothesis, this is the alternative way for gradient descent to compute this expression. And this expression will provide me this values of theta. Got it? Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Fine. Now I have demonstrated you this normal equation method with this simple example. Let us try to generalize this. Okay. So in generalization, what we have is, we are having m examples. The examples, m examples are given as x1, y1. So x1 is the feature vector for first example, and y1 is the output, actual output associated with this first example. Similarly, we are having m examples, so we are having these values given in our training data set: x1, y1, x2, y2 up to xm, ym. And please note that this feature vector x, right, is having n features. Okay, so my feature vector comprises of n features, and I am having m examples. Right now, to generalize the method, what we are saying here is, this first feature vector, or in general, the ith feature vector is actually described like this. This is my ith feature vector. So ith feature vector is described like x0i, x1i up to xni. How many features we are having? N features, right? So in this xi feature, I'll be having how many elements? N plus 1 elements. Are you getting me?
Yes, ma'am.
So we are describing one feature vector for ith sample, ith example. So my feature vector associated with ith example is denoted as a column vector having n plus 1 features. So this x1 to xn are the given features. We have added x0, one extra feature. This superscript I denotes the sample number or the observation number, and this subscript 0, 1 up to n, that is actually the feature number. Right? So this is how in general we may represent our feature vector. So ith feature vector is represented like this. Okay? Now what we are going to do next is, we are going to form a design matrix. We are going to form a design matrix. So how to form this design matrix X? Right? This design matrix is formed like we are having the number of rows in this design matrix. So how many rows I am having? Number of rows equal to number of examples in my training data set. So here we are having m examples. So the number of rows would be m in my design matrix. And what every row represents? Every row actually represents our feature vector. So simply what I'm trying to do is, whatever is this xi column vector, I'm simply making it, instead of having a column vector, I'm converting it in a row vector. So I'll be having xi transpose. So my first row would be x1 transpose, my second row would be x2 transpose, so on up to xm transpose. Why m? Because I am having m number of examples. So what I'll have, for example, what I will have in this x1 transpose, I will have this row vector. This is being converted into row. So what I'll be having? I'll be having x0, 1. So it is belonging to my first example. So I'm talking about this x1 transpose now. Then the second element would be x1, and here this belongs to my first sample. So on up to how many features I am having? N plus 1 feature. So the last feature would be xn from my first example. So this would be my first row, x1 transpose. x2 transpose would be x0 from second. So superscript would be 2. x02, x12, x32, so on up to xn2. And this is how I'm going to fill up this design matrix. Are you getting me? Yes?
Can you repeat, ma'am?
Yes. Fine. So have you understood how we have got this feature vector?
Yes, ma'am.
So xi, ith feature vector, means it is representing my ith sample. So I am having n plus 1 features. So I'll be having x0 from ith sample, x1 from ith sample, and so on. So nth feature belonging to ith sample. So this is how we are forming our column vector xi. Okay, representing one example. So how I am going to form now this design matrix? This design matrix X comprises of the number of rows equal to the number of training examples. So as we have n number of training examples, we will have n number of rows in my design matrix. So how we are going to define one row? Simply, whatever is this column vector, I want to convert this column vector into the row vector. And how I am going to convert this column vector into row vector? Simply by making transpose, computing transpose of this vector. So if I compute xi transpose, what I will get? I will get a row vector. Okay, so what I will have here is the first row would be x1 transpose. So what is x1? x1 is the feature vector associated with first sample. So simply I am having the transpose of that. So the elements in my column vector will now become the elements in my row vector. So this x1 transpose can be described like x0, 1, x1, 1, so on up to xn1. So these are the elements. Those are describing my first example, x superscript 1. Similarly, whatever are the features those I am having in my second example, I'll be forming second row out of that. So this is how we are going to collect the feature vectors of all m examples in our training data set. Got it? So in my design matrix, we are having m number of rows. And how many columns? Obviously, we'll be having n plus 1 columns. N plus 1 columns. Got it? Yes?
Yes, ma'am.
Fine. So, let me give you one simple example for this. Right? Let us assume that in our example, we are having this xi. That is the feature vector. Okay, for ith example. And let us assume that we are having only one feature actually. Okay, and this is my x0. that we have added, x0. So this is our x0 for ith feature, and as we have stated, this x0i will always be 1. So xi will be described as 1 x1i. So I have been provided with a single feature and I have added one more feature, that is 1. So the size of this column vector would be once again n plus 1. So here my n is equal to 1, having single feature. So how many elements I will have? N plus 1, 2 elements. So x0i would always be 1 and I am having this x1i. Is that correct? So how I am going to form my design matrix? See, if I am having once again m examples, then I'll be having m rows in this matrix X, m rows. Okay, and what would be there in one row? Transpose of this. So for the first example, I'll be having this 1 here and this x11, x11. For second example, 1 will be there and this would be x12 because it is second example. So on, for nth example, I'll be having the feature vector like 1 x1m. So this x1 feature belongs to mth sample. This x1 feature belongs to second sample. This x1 feature belongs to first sample. Right? So this is how we are forming our design matrix. And once we are having this design matrix, so obviously size of this design matrix is m into n plus 1. N is 1 here, so n plus 1 would be 2. So size of my design matrix would be m by 2. Okay, now is provided like this. In y, what I am having is the associated actual values. So y1, y2 up to ym, m number of samples we have. And based on now these two matrices, those we have, we are going to compute our theta by making use of this normal equation method. Theta equal to x transpose x inverse times x transpose y. So this will give me the values of theta. Okay. We will solve later some simple examples based on this. But to come up with these examples, in fact, we need to use some mathematical tool because computing the inverse of the matrix is not that easy if we manually compute the inverse of the matrix. You might be knowing the way how the matrix inverse is being computed, right? But instead of making use of manual of these matrix operations, we'll be writing one code that will provide us, because many of the different languages, there are the functions available to manipulate the matrices. So we are having the ready-made functionalities to compute the inverse of the matrix, to compute the transpose of the matrix, to compute the multiplication of the matrix or the matrices, right? So it is possible for us to evaluate this expression by making use of those ready-made functions available. And if we use those functions, it would become very easy to compute our theta parameters at one go. Right? We are going to see how we can do that. Right? So this is the alternative method for gradient descent. Now I'll just compare these two methods and will conclude the session. Okay? So obviously, as we have come up with now two methods for computing regression. One is computation of regression by making use of gradient descent, and this is the other method, computation of regression parameters by making use of normal equation. So which method is suitable in which scenario? So here is a simple comparison of these two methods. gradient descent method and the normal equation method. So let us see all those important points of comparison. So we are having n training examples and we are having n number of features per example. Okay, so if we compare gradient descent and normal equation, the first point of comparison is like this. In gradient descent, if you remember, we need to choose some learning parameter, that is alpha, learning rate. Right? Based on that learning rate, if you remember, we are having something like this, and based on that learning rate, we decide the step size. And by deciding the step size, we ultimately, after such few iterations, we come to the optimal value of theta. Right? So in gradient descent, we need to choose some learning rate alpha. In normal equation, we are not having such kind of a concept and we need not select any kind of learning rate, that is alpha, any such kind of parameter that is not existing for normal equation. Okay, if we consider gradient descent method, it needs many iterations. So as I stated, we select initial value of theta and then we go on updating the value of theta in every iteration, right? And after many iterations, we reach to the optimal theta values. Okay, so we require number of iterations to compute our gradient descent. But here in normal equation, as I stated, there is no need to iterate through. This expression directly provides us this values of theta. And what our expression is? Our expression is x transpose x inverse times x transpose y. So simply by computing this expression, it is possible to come up directly with the theta values. No need to iterate through. At one go, it is possible to find out the theta value if we go with normal equations. Now, in gradient descent, as we have seen already, depending on the values of the features, we may need to apply feature scaling if required. So in gradient descent, feature scaling is required. But if we look at normal equation, no feature scaling is required. Okay, so there are pros also and cons also for both these methods. So if we look at these three points, then we may find that normal equation is better option to find out the optimal values of theta. Right, because it need not use such kind of a parameter alpha, it need not require to iterate, no feature scaling is required in normal equation, right? But now, most important comparison is when to use gradient descent and when to use normal equation. So my gradient descent algorithm works well even when number of features n is very large. So if I am having, say for example, number of features greater than even 10 to the power 5, then also my gradient descent algorithm works really well. So if number of features are very large, typically beyond 10 to the power 5, then we should prefer to use gradient descent, right? If we look at normal equation needs to compute such kind of expression, x transpose x inverse. So this requires matrix operations, and if my matrix size is say n by n, then obviously my matrix multiplication and inverse operation requires lots of computations of order of n cube. Lots of computations are required. So obviously, if number of features n is very large, then normal equation method will be very, very slow. And that is why if the number of features are very large, do not go for normal equation method. But if comparatively the number of features are less, then obviously you may prefer to go with normal equation. If number of features are very large, then you should go for gradient descent. Right? So this is how we can compare the gradient descent and normal equation method. Right? So we are out of time. So I think you must have understood the concepts. If you are having any doubts, in the next session you may ask me the questions. Okay, so let us conclude the session today. You will be having a quiz for today. So respond for the quiz. Okay, so let's conclude today's session. Thank you.